want to welcome our special guest here today. We appreciate the C3 organization coming and introducing us to their new leader, Mr. Tom Weissmiller. Is it Weiss or Wise Miller?
Either one works. It's wise.
Wise, okay. I'm gonna say Wise.
It was originally Weiss.
Whatever Jamie said.
Okay.
During World War I, they anglicized it.
Well, we're gonna let you just talk with us, and we may have a few questions today, so, I hope that you'll, give us your ideas of the South and the area, and, what might lie ahead, and then, maybe, answer a few questions for us.
Absolutely. Tom Weissmiller, been working in economic development or related fields for about 14 years now. A little background on myself, married, wife Stacy, and she's works in counseling, and then have two kids, a son, Tommy, who just turned 13 today, so call him to wish him happy birthday. And my daughter Reagan is 10, and they're finishing up school in Ohio, and we'll join here in about 6 weeks or so when school ends. Really excited about that. We're really excited to be here. I am originally from Ohio, but spent time about 12 years in North Carolina. My wife is from Florida, Pensacola area. Her in-laws are in Pensacola. One of her other sisters is there. We have another sister-in-law in Tennessee, so this is kind of a really good location for the family. She went to Bible college in Mississippi, and I have a brother-in-law that lived in Tuscaloosa, huge Alabama fan. Went to a scrimmage there. It was really cool. Love college football. So culturally and background-wise, really good fit for us. My wife also really wanted to get south, kind of get closer to the family. And then as far as the position, what attracted me is just really good opportunity. I think with I-22 coming in, a long, proud tradition here with industrial manufacturing base that obviously goes back decades. With I-22 coming in, and you see a lot of population growth around this region. I know these three counties have the population's been a little bit flat for a few decades. But if you kind of look sort of the northeast, Mississippi, Huntsville, north to the north, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, everywhere around is sort of growing around. I'm a big believer in making things in the U.S., manufacturing. So just sort of culturally and opportunity-wise, really good fit. Really like the regional approach with C3. So very excited to be here. And ever since decided to come here, Matt, everybody, board, Jamie, everybody I've talked to on the leadership side, they've really proven the old adage of Southern hospitality. It's just been tremendous, the amount of kind of how people have rolled out the carpet and welcomed us here and sort of made that transition easier. That's sort of the background side. As far as kind of the first, say 60 some days on the job, it's a lot which I think the most important thing is to really go out and meet a lot of people and talk to them, do a lot of listening in a lot of cases, because I think it's good, not to toot my own horn, but I think it's good to sometimes bring in somebody with an outside perspective. But at the same time, there's folks here that have had businesses, built things going back decades, that know the market firsthand, probably better than I'll be able to ever totally learn. So I think if you can mesh those two things together, sort of a kind of a fresh perspective with the really the long kind of knowledge of being here, knowing how things work, knowing how things stick. So meeting a lot of people over the next 4 or 5 weeks, and out of that we'll sort of have. I started taking stock of the region and kind of looking at some of the assets and opportunities and so forth before I got here. But hearing from folks, I think I'll get an even clearer idea about that, and have sort of like a kind of mini strategic plan coming out of those sort of 60 days. Not to say, we will, if there's any sort of lead that comes down, I'm going to try to get out to this partnership in Birmingham pretty soon and be available for that. But I think there's some strategic things that we'll be working on. Workforce right now is just, as you probably all know, is super tight. It's a national crisis in a sense, and it's very, very big challenge. Everybody's struggling with it. I think there's some things we can do kind of right away, but some of that's just, you're gonna have to work on things now that may not pay off. Hopefully it'll pay off 1 year down the road, 2 years, and so forth. But that's sort of the immediate kind of hitting the ground running. And then just on a long-term basis, my background is, as I said, I kind of started out a little bit in city planning, did some downtown revitalization, and then moved into economic development. And I'm a big believer in industry and manufacturing, but I do have that background of kind of holistic economic development on the real estate side, doing kind of placemaking stuff, and not just industries or retail and the real estate side. And so if that's some kind of a priority, I think, hopefully, I believe I bring that kind of diverse skill set that I can help in these different areas, with keeping in mind that I still believe that kind of your industrial projects, not necessarily big. I'm not saying always you're chasing a white elephant. It could be a manufacturing firm that's gonna employ 45 people. I do believe the impact of that, again, not to say that retail doesn't have an impact, but that little 45 person operation, there's an economic development, we talk about sort of a multiplier effect, where that company, not only are they gonna hire those 45 people, they're gonna hire goods and services to build those things in locally here, and it's generally gonna create sort of spin-off jobs in addition to those 45. So that's sort of the bread and butter, really, and that's both working with existing industries. I think that's equally important, if not more so, especially right now with the workforce challenges. Really building strong relationships with the existing companies in Hamilton and throughout the 3-county region. Especially the big employers getting into the door once and twice a year, more if possible, and really building that relationship and understanding what they're dealing with, and if they have if some big issues come up, trying to help solve those problems with existing industry, while also being really proactive and trying to attract industries to Hamilton, to Marion, and then the other 2 counties. That's sort of an overview, but happy to answer any questions and kind of dive into anything.
Question time.
We got a lot of good industries, in this area. Of course, we represent Hamilton, and a lot of good industries here in this town.
Yeah.
What can C3 do to help our existing industries in this area because I work at Buccaneer Homes.
Yeah.
And it's every day we're looking for people.
Yeah.
What could C3 do to help, maybe through the college or something, that with our community college here in town, to maybe try to help develop a better skilled labor force?
Yeah.
With the existing industry, before we start looking outside to bring more in, because we all know, it seems like everybody in this area is hiring right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for folks, and it's a struggle. I know where I work at, it's a struggle that we face every day. And what can C3 do to maybe help with that issue right now?
That's a great question. I think we're oftentimes in the economic development role sort of a facilitator in linking to other resources, where we would come out to the company and you find out that the shortage is really critical. We have a couple meetings coming up with Bevel State, some of the other workforce development partners, and I think, not for lack of a better word, we'd be kind of nagging them. I mean, they're there, and they may be doing a fantastic job, but this isn't to suggest otherwise or whatever, but we're sort of an advocate, and that's partly their job, is to take their existing programs and put them to work for the company, for Buccaneer, but they have other clients, and they're constantly working, so we're sort of nagging them a little bit, like, hey, checking in, kind of making sure that it's still kind of on schedule and so forth. The other thing, I think we can meet with them and try to figure out, I mean, the tricky thing about workforce is a lot of what you can do is gonna take a little while to pay off, and by that time, maybe the unemployment rate goes up or whatever, but, I will talk to them, I'm hearing that with everybody I've talked to so far, today, and really nationally. When I talk to them, we're gonna try to figure out what can we do in the next 3 months immediately. I know in, Union County, we had a program for historically, the manufacturers were hesitant to put high school kids into potentially what they thought sort of risky, manufacturing type environments. But over time, it's become safer and safer and kind of cleaner and cleaner. I think the states have passed some legislation enabling some of that where the companies can do that with less liability. So, I mean, that's something that we can look at. Might not be necessarily a huge influx of people right away, but if we can add a few 17-year-olds that are ready to do that and do it in a way that the company can manage, it's not an overburden in terms of liability or something to that effect. I think that's something we can talk about. I mean, I think at this point, it's such a critical thing, we kind of have to throw the kitchen sink at it, but I'll say, I'll be somewhat honest that some of that you're throwing at it is probably gonna pay off 6 months, 12 months, or 2 years, 3 years down the road.
Right.
But I will say it's a priority number one, and, I feel the urgency, and I think, you know, would welcome, I think probably could do some, I know sometimes we kind of run into quorums and whatnot, but if we can pull some leaders together and kind of roll up our sleeves too and work that. But final, I guess to wrap that back up, as a lot of this is facilitation, when it comes to the actual training of the skills, that we're not the trainers.
Right.
But we can link to the trainers. If it's trying to get housing for somebody that's moving to the area, say your company's coming in and they're hiring 50 people and they're bringing some people in, we're not, on the housing side per se, we're not, obviously not builders and we're not developers or whatever, but we know we're gonna be talking to the developers and we're gonna be talking to the builders, and we're gonna have these relationships, and we're gonna try to nag people and that kind of thing.
Have you had some industries that you helped bring in where you came from before you moved here?
Yes, the
Retail or industry type manufacturing that you was involved with?
retail, most of the retail experience that we did in Greenville was it started out as redevelopment. So Greenville, North Carolina, it's where East Carolina University is located. It was a tobacco town, historically kind of a little bit lower income, but when ECU came in and grew and grew and grew, kind of more money came into the place. And when I came in there, the downtown was not necessarily in great shape, but they had already created a redevelopment commission. We're starting to kind of invest in it. And what we did was we would sort of set the foundation. So you'd have a property that was not, it would usually have an existing building on it that was dilapidated. We used a bunch of mechanisms kind of on the real estate side to in some cases purchase the property, try to get grant money from the federal government, states, demo, clean up, a lot of stuff around the site where we were getting, using bond funds to improve the streets in terms of making them look nicer, sidewalks, plazas, kind of making this environment where the developers would want to come in and build. They would want to build student housing. It's East Carolina University. They'd want to build student housing. So in some cases, if they ask for an incentive, we would say, we don't really incentivize housing, but if you do a mixed use project where you do some retail, maybe include some office retail, and in that case, and we were essentially retail recruiting on some of those deals where there was a broker, but we're at conventions or whatnot, we're actually literally talking to retailers. I think we got a Moe's to come into one of our properties. So point is, it was sort of strategic. We weren't doing like citywide nonstop retail recruitment, but I think we were really successful where we had a good product, a specific location that was set up well. we did some retail recruitment, but I think it was more, I would emphasize retail attraction. And the thing I try to stress is that retail attraction and recruitment and industrial attraction and recruitment are really completely different games. On the industrial side, the site selection people, they may do a few projects per year in some cases, because they're maybe working on really big projects, and the clients haven't expanded in 20 years or something a lot of times. And they are sponges for information, and they really want to talk to you. They're asking for incentives for one thing. They want to know what incentives you're going to give them. And first off, I should say, they're not going to talk to you until you're kind of on their shorter list, when you sort of wheedled it down, usually to about 10 to 12. And then if you get down to sort of 3 or 4, then you're really in business. But at that point, they want to talk to you a lot. They have a lot of questions. You're on the line with them. You're on meetings with them constantly. Retail site selectors, you'll never hear from them. I mean, you can try to reach and go out, kind of try to get their attention, but they're very independent. They're not asking for incentives, although I guess some places now are starting to do incentives, but it's not real typical. There's no, like the state of Alabama partnership. They're not sending leads for retail leads. So it's a completely different game. I think there's some things we can do on the retail side, absolutely. But that's, so to answer your question, I've worked on retail projects, but it was where it was more of like a real estate deal.
Right.
Where we were improving a property, setting it up for investment, attracting investment, and then retail ended up being a component of the project. But we weren't doing like wall to wall, but I have some experience on that. On the industrial side, a lot, definitely, I'd say most recently in Marysville, this is, I don't know how familiar you are with Marysville. About 40 years ago, Honda built its first manufacturing facility in Marysville. And that's the major, really one of the major employers, but there's also Scotts Miracle-Gro and some other major employers there. Automotive industry is pretty big. There was an industrial park that was set up pretty well. I did it was a state lead that kind of went through our regional partners at One Columbus. And I was the project lead. I'm putting together all the information about the site. It made the cut to where the site selector wanted to talk to us about the site. And we went through that process, and that was a really good win for us. Ended up being, it's a Spanish automotive company called Alcorta Forging Group. I kind of had to troubleshoot that one because when it first came through, some of the city leaders and other folks they saw forging, and they were thinking like Pittsburgh, Youngstown, Ohio, Cuyahoga River on fire kind of stuff. Like they thought it was gonna be like smoke, like really smokestacky kind of thing. And there's a lot of sensitivity about that. So what I sort of had to kind of walk it through that this is advanced this is a new style forging. They weren't gonna have really any impacts on the neighbors, because this is a corporate industrial park. It wasn't really like a heavy industrial park. And sort of walked through on the noise was not gonna be a concern, so we kind of troubleshooted all that, got everybody on board, and that's probably the prime example. That's about, I think it's fluctuated a little bit, but it's about 60 jobs, and it's a 50,000 square foot facility, automotive forging. So that was a big win. Right before I left, and part of the reason why I wasn't able to come down a little bit sooner, we were working on a huge project. We call it a whale. It's a consumer manufacturing project. There's almost 2,200 jobs, and we had a site, it's a big 150-acre site. We were working through a lot of challenges, a lot of information exchanges. I mean, worked on that for months. And the last I heard, we might be second on that one, but it's a first or second, so they'll find out. That's probably the biggest example. But I mean, just to get to the top 4 on something like that,
Yeah.
it was a major undertaking.
First thing they do is start weeding out everybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, they may start with 20, and they're weeding them out till they get to the last 2-3 sites.
Definitely.
Yeah, they're not
And it's
gonna
hard to
visit
make
all
that
of them.
first, no, they're not, they don't even consider you.
Mm-mm.
And we don't know that, cause I know retail development looks at us and we don't even know they're here. They study our exits, they study our
Sure.
infrastructure. They can go to the courthouse and see who owns property, we don't even know they're in Hamilton, then they come stay 2 days here in the motel
Right.
and just see our town before they ever contact us, that happens a lot. So I didn't know if you're more familiar with retail or industrial, or what your thoughts was that,
So
I mean, our advantages, do we need existing buildings, which we don't really have?
Yeah,
We've got
well,
2 great
Talked about
industrial
that.
parks, have you seen our parks? You got a chance to see our parks?
absolutely. Yeah, I think, I will say, I was, talking to Jamie about that earlier, and I will say, yeah, there, a lot of people are in that position right now, because the industrial property market is just red hot. In Union County, Marysville, it was 1% vacancy rate. And so, yeah, if there was a place that had 18% industrial vacancy rate before this market, they probably still have product. But my point is, there's a lot of people in that position right now, they're lacking product. But it's definitely true. Sometimes the companies are not necessarily that realistic about when they think they're gonna start operations. Although, is that on? I don't know if I
Yeah.
get quoted on that, but, they'll say they wanna start like 6 months from now or something, and they're building this really large facility, or not, even if they say a year, when you know it's gonna take 2 years. So we saw a lot of leads where they started out saying they wanted an existing building, and we couldn't respond to it, and then 3 months later, the same project came back and said, we're looking for a greenfield. So, the point is, a lot of people are in the same boat, but absolutely, if, one thing that could be interesting is a virtual spec building. It's obviously less money, it doesn't, if somebody wants to get in really fast, they can't start operations quite as fast as they
Right.
could in a physical spec building, but it does save about half the time that they, or maybe, that may be a little ambitious, but a third to a half of the time on that process, on making that. And it's a little more flexible too, because more often than not, they're gonna have to make changes to your building. And I think the idea with the shell is it's flexible, it's a box and they can make
Right.
changes. But sometimes it's even the box is not flexible enough, and they have to tweak the box. So if you have a virtual spec building, it's a lot easier to tweak your box, but it does take a little bit longer, but it's less money. So I think there's sort of pros and cons, something we can talk about. I think as part of the kind of the early process of getting talking to all the stakeholders and leaders and businesses and so forth, is trying to get some input on that. What are the needs? And because I do have I haven't been able to, I got my computer yesterday, and I started to crunch some numbers. I was taking all the leads that I worked on in Ohio and averaging out kind of average building size for different types of projects, average acreage, and so forth. I think that sort of data can maybe help you game plan a little bit. Like, okay, so if you're gonna do a virtual spec building, what should it look like? Typically, the sweet spot seems to be, I mean, if you're trying to go smaller, it's like 60,000 square feet. And if you try to go too much smaller than that, you're losing a lot of leads. And then there's the kind of the next range where you're like into the 100+ square feet.
Alex, you got a question?
I mean, like Tyler was saying, I see it, not only from where I work. I just work across the street at the pharmacy with my dad. He's the welding instructor at Bevel, and that's one thing that he really sees is these kids, they want to make good money, and welding's a great job, but they don't want to move away. And my chief goal whenever I campaigned was that I wanted the class of 2020 to move back here. So I guess, does C3 kind of, do they, like Tyra asked, can they kind of connect those links to not, I mean, of course keep jobs here, but to get the kids that go and get 2 years degree jobs, do y'all do some things like that, or?
That's a great idea. I think that sort of wrap my mind around that a little bit. We've talked about doing that so it was in Union County, and you had Ohio State University had engineering and, let's say, some degrees related that could be related to the automotive industry, where it could be robotics, kind of engineering type stuff. And then so they have, you know who those people are, and now they're working in Northern California, or maybe they're working in Detroit. That was our rival. It carried over beyond football, but, a lot of times they're working in Detroit, or they're working in maybe Boston, kind of, some of these tech people, or it could be in other parts of the country. If you sort of know who they are, you can kind of, it's not always that cheap, but you can hit those people with messages, kind of electronic messaging, market to those people, your talent, people that live there, that you know that would like to come home, or potentially would like to come home, and have an emotional connection to the place that you're trying to attract people to. So, I think that's something we can talk about. And then as far as were you saying, some people were here, wanted welding, but didn't wanna move to go get it?
I think what, like, going back to Scott's point is, you know, around here, especially my generation, they don't really wanna move. So like, the C3 kinda help not only get industry here, but help employ that industry. Like, could they help Buccaneer or help NTN or even 3M, you know, find these employees is that something they do?
We typically more as a facilitator,
Okay.
Cause we're not sort of the experts on that.
Yeah.
We're kinda like, jack of all trades, typically wear multiple hats, and, so we will tend to go to the specialists on that. And that will be, you'll kind of regionally, you'll have workforce people. On some of these bigger projects, or bigger, if it's enough of an emergency, I would hope, hopefully you get the state resources at play. I mean, the state will have, they'll have grants and tax credits and so forth for training programs. And like, if, I know sometimes it's not fair to existing industry. If you land a company, like the one I was talking about, the 2,200 people, if Union County were to land that, the state was gonna do like very aggressive stuff to fill those 2,200 people.
Alabama will do that also.
They were gonna open up an office in that, near the company, to do nothing but staff that one company to help support.
Like their own career center or something,
Yeah.
I mean, you know. But that is one thing, I don't mean to interrupt you, Tom, but, that we also do, C3 does. We partner with the career centers in our area, and we also partner with the schools or the cities when they wanna put on a career fair, or like Bevel, you know, the Worlds of Work. C3 is a big participant in those types of things also.
Absolutely. And I will say, we did a virtual career fair
Yep, we've done some of those.
in, it wasn't just Union County, it was kind of a multi-county, partnership approach. And it was a little bit rough, we had 46 companies on the line that had kind of built out sort of virtual booths, so to speak. And, we had, I think it was like 21 applicants. That was how rough, no, it was like that's normally the other way around. Normally, sort of 5 years ago, you could get, kick and scream, maybe get 7 companies to participate, you'd have 192 applicants. It was just, yeah, I mean, it's really tight right now. Some people think it has to do with some of this, like the stimulus money and some other factors. I know for a while there, it seemed like, I'm sorry.
We've got NASA about an hour and a half north of us. I hear they have hundreds of support industries. We haven't had a single one offered to us in our area. And I want the next nose cone of the rocket that lands on Mars to be built in our industrial park down here. That's where I'm coming from. I want some high-tech jobs. And we built trailers around here over the years, and we've done a heck of a job of it. But trailer building is trailer building.
Yep.
We don't have any high-tech industry in our area. 3M's the closest thing probably, in NTN that does precision work. Not saying the trailers aren't built to precision either, but I'm just saying we don't have electronics, electrical engineers here living in Hamilton because we need them. We want to bring some of those people here that'll build homes and live the rest of their lives here. So we gotta think out of the box a little bit to get some of this to happen, and I'm not gonna be happy as an individual that lives in Hamilton, but I'll see some of that come to be. And that's just how I feel about things, and, you know, I've got to see something that keeps this generation from leaving us. Once they get their education, they're gonna find their fortune somewhere. And if it's not in Hamilton, it'll be somewhere, Atlanta or, some big city that can offer them what they're looking for, and I want it to be right here. And that's why I wanted to meet you today and tell you what my dream is to see something better for our people. And I'm not saying we haven't survived very well, without very much help from our government. We're disconnected from Montgomery. We've been that way for years now, and we get little or no help out of the powers that be in Montgomery. But we wanna do it, if we have to do it on our own, we're gonna do it on our own, but we're gonna make this community a better community one way or the other. And we need you to help us, Tom.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, I totally agree, Mayor. I think there's some kind of strategic, planning and thinking
We
about.
wanna see a reason to be a member of C3. We were a member for 7 or 8 years and virtually saw nothing as fruit.
Yeah,
And that's why this last administration didn't vote to stay in. They couldn't see anything for their buck. And I wanna bring this council back into the fold if we can see fit to do that. But we need a reason to be there. So I want you to find that reason to bring to us, and if you can say, we can do this, then we'll probably wanna join with you. If you're saying, I probably can't make this happen, why should we, jump on board?
no, I think we can make it happen. I do need to figure out a little more about if, say there's 5 key things that have to be lined up in order to be attractive for a project like that. I mean, there's a little more, you may have to, sometimes you have to do a little bit of investment, like, for example, maybe a virtual spec building, would be an example. Certainly we try to keep it kind of within, manage it. But on the other side, I mean, marketing, we're gonna market very aggressively. That's, we're gonna, not in addition to the state leads, cause I know a lot of times, some of the state isn't always that, on camera, I'm getting quoted again here, but, you might not get all the leads.
We can throw that out the door if we have to.
But I personally think the opportunity has somewhat passed us by.
Yeah.
Look at what's happening today under this new administration. They're wanting to raise minimum wage to the point that it used to be the starting pay for all good jobs around here.
Yeah.
And they think that that's gonna work. What it's gonna do is send more jobs south of the border again, and back to India, back to Bangladesh and Pakistan and wherever they make stuff. They're not gonna pay the wages that people are gonna demand around here if they keep it. This administration's advocating all this stuff. So, I mean, is it healthy for our economy? I don't think so. I mean, I'm looking at the big picture, I think, here, and it don't look too hot to me. So I think we've missed the boat in some areas already, and if we wait very much longer, I think we have a chance to really miss the boat. So it's gotta happen now, if it's ever gonna happen.
To bring in, say, manufacturing jobs in, I guess I'm a little biased since I work for an industry here in town. How do we protect them? Because we don't have, I hope I say this right, but the labor force around right here in this immediate area
Yeah.
to take on a big manufacturing plant to where you don't rob from these other industries that have been here. Buccaneers celebrating 50 years. Been here in this community, supported it, paid their taxes, been good to this community. The manufactured housing industry is really, in the textile back in the days too, for everything that shipped off overseas, but made this town. And those industries are here to me, I guess I have a special heart for them. We gotta protect them too and not rob them of their labor force. And that's my scare about, you know,
Yeah. I
because we don't have the housing around here either. I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's hard to find a house to rent, to buy. I mean,
Scott, they tried to send your industry abroad too. They tried their best. If it weren't for the hauling of those things back and forth to China or wherever they wanted to send them to build them, that your industry would be out of the United States also. And it was more economical still to build them here, and y'all do a heck of a job of it. And the manufactured housing industry's come leaps and bounds forward over time, and we've been the hub of the industry, right? Our region has done it, and but they tried to send those jobs overseas too, and ship the houses back here after they built them. It just wasn't feasible.
you know, in the early nineties, we had probably 30-something plants in a 3-county area, and now we're down to, not exact number, but probably 15 or so. And we lost a lot of jobs around here. People had to move off, and Hamilton is, to me, has fought their way back. And but like I said, that's just a big concern of mine. How do you protect and how do we work with our existing industries to make them better? And maybe a prospect coming in sees that, you know,
Yeah.
that might be a,
Oh, I agree.
You
A
got
start.
a challenge because you got several counties, several cities, and everybody wanting the same thing. Cause we're jealous, we want it here. You know, I want Marion County to grow and Winfield and Butte and all that, but I'm for Hamilton, I want us to get everything we can get. That, you know, that we feel like, well, we have better opportunities actually, we have the corridor, we have, you know, the industrial park, so obviously we should have a little bit of advantage, you know, more than some. But meeting the challenge for getting a lot of jobs, like Scott said, it's gonna be hard, it really is, I mean,
If
40,
you
50
offer a
jobs is
high-tech
easier than
job
50.
with good salaries, those people
They'll
will
come.
show up.
they will,
come.
and they'll build a house.
They'll
they'll
come and
buy.
build a home and live here.
I agree.
We hadn't had anything to offer them as an attraction to people.
I agree.
We, the ones that found their way to the manufactured home industry, you know, they do that. The ones that found their way to NTN, they do that. Some of them don't keep their health when they go to NTN because there's a chemical down there that affects some of the people that work
Thought I
there.
turned that on.
So it's not the best environment to work in, but it's a decent paying job, and people go to these places. If we had a high-tech job to offer, believe me, folks would show up.
Yeah,
We'd have a workforce.
they move back home.
We could bring lots of young folks back close to grandma and grandpa that would like to be back here.
But
Scott Hunt, you haven't said a word. You love Hamilton. What's your vision for Hamilton, Alabama?
Well, I think everyone echoes it pretty well. Our biggest challenge is how can we work with our existing industries and businesses, and how can we bring in other industries? Housing, people is the biggest problem we deal with. Fortunately, we have jobs, but how can we get people to move here and bring them here? How can we work with Bevel on developing programs that our high school students can use to go into work locally as well? Retail usually back ends off of all of that, but the big issue we have, I think, is people and getting people to want to stay here, want to move back here, and be able to provide them with excellent job opportunities as well. And I mean, that's a formula that hopefully you can figure out. But you know,
it's daunting, but on the other hand, I don't see, if you take a kind of balanced strategic approach, some of this stuff sort of works itself out, and if you're, you gotta, the other part is just the importance of customer service. I mean, we're, hopefully, I mean, we will regularly be going out to these existing companies and really putting them first, and trying to understand what they're dealing with. Right now, workforce is everybody. At other times, it may be different. It may be their neighbors doing something or whatever. But really being partners with the companies and working with them, as you said, that'll help. When you try to attract people, they know you're a customer service oriented community. But the thing about, like what the mayor was talking about, if you had a project like that, a kind of high-tech project or a larger, mid-size, let's say, manufacturing, project, as I was saying before, generally it's gonna take like 2 years before they're actually operational. And they're going to get a lot of state support when they come in, which again, isn't always that fair to existing companies, but, you can be, hopefully you can be doing a lot of stuff with your existing companies in those 2 years and really ramping up and addressing these workforce challenges. And again, the unemployment rate may shift a little bit 2 years down the road, but it gives you that window, kind of that 2-year window. The other part is if we're marketing aggressively now, for some of those projects, it may take you a little time to get one, and then obviously time before they're operational. I think my point is you can, if you're strategic and balanced about it, you can do all the above. If, in the event that it's sort of a good problem to have, or the example in Union County, where if that big manufacturer, 2,200, and they were gonna hire 2,200 people, if they decide to locate in Union, there's some of the existing companies are probably gonna really fret about it. But it's also an awesome opportunity. I think there's a lot of people, a lot of resources that come into play, when you have a project like that. So that's sort of the positive flip side to that, is I think we can do it, we can do all those things, and kind of walk and chew gum at the same time, be preparing strategically for a project like that, and doing what we have to do to get ready for those, while addressing these immediate workforce challenges that the existing companies are doing, and putting the existing companies first, while we're also proactively marketing and recruiting. The other point I wanted to make about the customer service side is, we were talking about kind of Hamilton versus Winfield or Fayette. When you're taking that customer service approach, I totally expect you to feel that way, but from an economic development point of view, we have to look at it like, we're serving the client and locating them in the best location within these 3 counties, because we want them to be it really doesn't serve anybody if they're less successful. If you sort of steer them into one location, whereas they would have been more successful at another location, they're not, if they're not as successful, they're not gonna hire as many people, they're not gonna make as much money, and so forth. So, but within the 3 counties, we're trying to locate them in what's gonna work best for them.
Right.
Just like we're working with existing businesses and trying to help them be as successful as possible. But I fully expect, it's sort of your role to push for Hamilton, our role to push for the best location within the 3 counties.
But what do you think about Hamilton, our location, with everything we have, you think that, I mean, in your expertise, you think we would fare all right in this market? Or?
And the workforce part is
Yeah.
part of the challenge. Again, everybody's dealing with that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the other assets that you look at, that you have the utilities, up in, where I was, up in Union County, we didn't have enough natural gas. It was just a constant headache, like a battle we had. There's natural gas, electric, water, I-22 is a major asset. You have, the parks, and again, a lot of times they want existing buildings, but they end up coming back to greenfields anyway. It's pretty typical. You have greenfield sites, you have parks, broadband, the cost of business, the cost of power, the cost of labor, tax rates. I mean, really competitive. Price of cost of business, very competitive. So I think it's an excellent location. That's why I came down here. But workforce is a challenge. And again, I don't wanna, you wanna do it strategically where you're not overstressing your existing companies.
What was the unemployment rate for you was at, Tom?
It was like, well, it blipped up a little bit during the shutdowns, but I think it was like 4% or something, super low.
Well,
And it was like,
That's how ours has been too.
I think here we finally have gotten back
Yeah,
to
it may have
the
been
pre-COVID the latest numbers I saw, I think it's 2.9, I think it's the latest numbers
Oh,
out
wow,
now.
yeah, that's real low.
And, so we're back to the pre-COVID, which is good, and still trying to hire. I mean, what I see on social media and the papers, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities here right now. And this might be a question here for Jamie and Matt, just to ask y'all, but I was looking through the folder and who were some of the other board members? I didn't see a list, I didn't see it in the packet we got.
I didn't even have to do that.
Oh.
Are you on our email list?
I think
I
so.
need to get y'all, anybody's email that I don't have, because, that's actually something that.
I know I emailed you that, to put me on
Need
that, I'd
to
like
get that on there,
and,
okay, I guess I just didn't get it done.
I've actually got a flyer I'll shoot you that will
Okay.
outline
Okay.
the whole, if that's okay?
Yeah.
And I'll share that, or the mayor can share that with everyone on the board.
And
Jamie drafted it, I'm just peddling her work.
I think I
And
saw
Mary-
that list on one of
Yeah.
your,
Mm-hmm,
when you sent me an email.
mm-hmm.
I think I've got a copy of all the list of the board.
Other
It
than
said meet
that,
our directors, and it had a little
Yes.
highlight of all
yes,
of them.
a little blurb
Yeah.
about each person, yeah.
And how was that selected? I mean, just to be asked, 'cause like I said, I'm totally agreeing to this, first time I've
Yes.
ever been in political office,
Okay.
so I'm learning.
For each county, they are appointed by their commission. The Marion County, the Lamar County, and the Fayette County Commission get 2 appointments, a voting member and an ex officio, a non-voting member. Then, the mayors of each county, Marion County, Lamar County, and Fayette County, mayors in good standing.
Right.
Come together and appoint 2 board members, an ex officio and a voting member. And then the third entity is CDF for Marion County, Community Development Foundation. They appoint a voting member and an ex officio. And then WEDA, I don't know if you've ever heard of WEDA, West Alabama Economic Development Authority. They are located they're kind of the CDF of Lamar and Fayette counties. And they also appoint a voting member and an ex officio. So when we're fully covered, we have 18 board members. We do have a couple of openings right now. We have about 16 right now, board members. So we're just kind of waiting on a couple of, in fact, they're both from Marion County. CDF needs to appoint an ex officio, and Marion County Commission will be appointing an ex officio. So,
You asked.
you did ask.
It's a
Tom.
I just wanted to know, I mean,
Yeah.
but, it's just like we've talked with some other folks who've come in, I think, and we've talked about as far as a council,
Mm-hmm,
transparency goes a long way, and gaining people's trust,
sure.
and knowing that you're getting your money's worth,
Mhm.
and that, like I said, it's just transparency. I mean,
Mhm.
and I think that's something we've talked about as a council and with the mayor, and
Mhm.
that we wanna be that way, and,
Mhm.
anything we'd wanna be affiliated with, we'd want that back.
Sure.
And, just from that standpoint, I mean, it's just,
And I think that's not only a reasonable expectation, I think it's your job as a council person to expect that. The balance that we constantly strike is how much time do we, as an entity, spend communicating and providing transparency, and how much time do we spend out, with boots on the ground trying to drum up recruits. And it's quite frankly, both could be a full-time job, because like every other council and like every other commission, you guys desire and deserve transparency and frequent communication. And our challenge as a board has always been, how do we hit that balance between, giving you money's worth because we got a guy that's in Timbuktu trying to beat the, bridges down to get you a job, versus being here telling you about what he did 3 months ago, which is of no value at all anymore. We're gonna lean heavy on Tom to strike that balance in a way that meets your expectations, and at the same time gives you your money's worth in terms of his doing that.
well, and I think with that, transparency will build the trust.
Exactly.
And And I think that's a key thing, just communicating back and forth what's going on. And, you know, if we do this, $25,000, I won't be able to tell people when they ask me how that money's being spent.
Sure.
And where it's going, you know, and then, I think we all want that. If, you know, if we're asked,
Sure.
we won't be able to explain that.
Yes, sir.
Hey, if you wanna provide your email address, I'll show you what our budget is and what we spend on each line item and how much we spend on marketing and advertising and how much we spend on,
Yeah, I think there's sort of three levels of that.
we're totally transparent, so.
I think you have, things you're doing, activities, say like the budget that shows how much you spend on different activities, all the way to 50 new jobs last year or whatever, and there's some stuff in between that. I think with that transparency, our goal would be to demonstrate results and be transparent and report on those results. There will always be results on activity. We're gonna work hard and we're gonna market and we can track, publications we advertise to, and we'll make sure that there's some attention in that, let's say a report like that shows how it's Hamilton specific. We might do a report that's for the entire region, but with some Hamilton specific, showing you what we're doing. That's gonna be constant, and then when you get wins, then that's probably the biggest result that you would wanna do.
And everybody's impatient. I mean, we want it now. You know, I mean, you know, you don't wanna wait a year, 2 years down the road. Everybody wants it now. And that's just, that's the nature of the beast right now.
Yeah.
And they want results.
I'll close with this thought, guys, and y'all can, take it for what it's worth, but we really, as a region, need the unity of having you in our team. And I understand there's a lot of, you know, issues in the past, but we need to be able to go to Montgomery and not have our competitors say, you know, they don't have the largest city in their region as part of their team. We need the opportunity to say, we're all together, we're all in. And I would covet your support to allow us to be able to say that in Montgomery, we're all in.
I agree with you on that. I mean, your
Absolutely.
cities, your county
Makes a
commission,
difference.
I mean, everybody's gotta be on the same page. Go as one package, you're much stronger than going separate.
Yes, sir.
And I agree with you on that. That's true.
Thank y'all for your time.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, thank you
Appreciate
for
y'all
allowing us to
coming.
Thank
visit.
you.
We were looking forward to the meeting, and we look forward to some additional meetings. We're getting started today, and we really realize that Matt's comments hit a point that we believe that there's something in unity. The effort that we're making to make this community better, I don't like to hear we don't have a workforce as being an excuse. I believe the workforce will show up for a good job. I think we need to be out there working to get good jobs, good paying jobs, like other communities have gotten, and we fail to get. And, you know, my effort is to, as Scott Tower said, is to show the people we're in, we're proud we're in. We don't wanna just throw the money on the table every year, and next year, we might get something next year. We gotta have something to happen, and it's just, I don't know how to make it happen exactly, but I'm not gonna quit trying. I'm already on the path of some things now, solo. I don't care to go it alone if I have to, but I'd rather be with a group. I think there's some strength in that. But, I mean, 25,000 to a little community like us, will do several things that we need to get done. And we got money to spend, because heavens knows, there's 40 things we need to do right now that cost money, and we sat in a little session the other night and spent $1 million. You know, millions don't come easy to us, but it didn't take long to chew that million up, and we've got many other millions we could spend if we do the things that we need to do. So that,
Right.
I guess that's why we resist a little bit on obligating ourselves for even to 25,000. We need it so many places. But we still wanna be on the team somehow or other, and you know, we're gonna put our confidence in you if we're gonna join with you, and we're gonna be in support of you. And heavens, I don't wanna be a member of something I can't support. That's why I want us all on board 100%. If we do it, I want every man that serves on this council along with myself to vote for it. I don't want any negatives. If we got any negatives, I just do not get in. You know, I didn't have a single vote to stay in the first administration. Not one person would say, I'm for staying in C3. And I want this group to either be united as a front, or we're, as far as I'm concerned, we don't rejoin. I can't see any reason to be ununified in an economic effort, for goodness sakes, and just don't make sense. I hope I'm not coming across wrong here, but I'm just speaking my heart. You can't hardly speak your heart anymore without hurting somebody's feelings that's listening out there. It's just pitiful how the nation has gotten, and communities perceive what they hear and they make their own interpretation of it. But if you're listening on camera out there, I want good things for this community. That's where my heart's at. And if it offends somebody when I say something, I'm sorry. But anyway, thank you for coming. Thank you, man. Thank you. We wanna get this
Good to
done,
see
okay?
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
You want to
See you, Mike. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Matt.
I got it, go ahead. You.
Are we gonna know you as Tom or Mr. Wisecarver?
Tom's good. Oh, Vice Department works too.
I'm Bob, okay?
Call
Bob's
me,
good.
the project you're working on, let me know if I can help with it.
Thank you for coming today, I appreciate it
You got
very
an
much.
email?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got his, I've
We've
got
not done
yours,
it.
okay. Okay. Thank y'all.
Thank
It's good to see y'all.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you, man.
Thanks.
Take care.
Hey, Ross.
All right, we got just a few more things on the drawing board today, and the gym floor and repairs, we're in our off season. We got a gym floor over there that's in a mess. Tim's getting one more bid, and that'll give us 3 bids. Then, Scott's gonna go to the insurance company, that backed up the bond for the job that was done over there, and given a chance to pay, all or a prorated part of the damages over there. The cost is gonna be roughly $40,000 to $45,000 to get that floor fixed. And we're hoping to get it out of the insurance company. Scott don't want us to just pay for it out of our general budget, and, he wants to try his effort to get the insurance folks to pay this for us. But Tim was supposed to have the other bid today. He's got 2. He was supposed to get a 3rd one today, and the guy called and put him off for Thursday, so we'll have the other bid by Thursday afternoon, and we'll know. Then we're gonna give it to Scott to submit to the insurance folks. This floor got some moisture under it and moved on us, and it won't lay back down, and we've had to tear out some boards, put some stuff down there to keep people from turning their ankles when they're playing there. And we're in an off season, we wanna get this floor corrected. We think we've got the moisture all sealed off now, and the floor moved before the contractor ever left the job site. They pulled it back down with screws and put the floor back down, but it got more moisture and come back up again, and it came up worse the second time, so, that's why it's in a mess. It just, anyway, enough said about that, I guess. Money and uses, Rodney and I met yesterday and again today. sewer and water is the only thing we're gonna be able to use this money for. And we've gotta submit a plan in 60 days after this money, half of it's gonna come to us in May. Half of the $1,224,000 will be received to Angela, and she'll put it in an account. We've gotta submit a 60-day plan within 60 days of how we're gonna spend this money. Rodney and I want y'all to look into letting us do, radio read, water meters. They're more efficient. They can give you a printout as to when, if you have a customer that loses a lot of water to a leak, it'll show you on a printout when the water usage happened. It's so much more efficient than the system we got now. It avoids human error as far as making a mistake on reading the meter, putting the numbers down in the wrong fashion somehow. So I just think it's a good thing. Last year 2 years ago, we got some pricing on changing these. It was about $650,000. This estimate Rodney got today was $545,000.
How many meters is that, Mayor?
That's 3,500 meters.
Does that do away with the water meter reader? Or is it automatically read?
Well, we got a man that's getting ready to retire,
Yeah, I know that.
and he's been our sampler
Right.
and helped read the meters. We won't replace him.
Right.
We'll move a man that's on the meter reading job to that, then we'll just have one man to drive and read our meters.
So it's drive-by, once you drive by, it reads it?
Yeah, if you got your computer, it'll read to your computer off the antenna that's on the meter. And it's gonna be perfectly correct every time it reads it. It'll be much faster, to get our meters read. You don't have to get out of the vehicle, go raise the lid, look at the numbers. It'll commute, back and forth to your computer, and the gas company's got this system now. Rodney checked with, Heath to see what kind of problems they have. He said we have virtually no problems reading our meters every month. They're so easy to do. They've even talked about possibly taking both computers in their truck when they go read their gas meters and read our meters for us if we get the automated system. So, you know, we might could work out something with them. We don't know. We'll need one meter reader, but he won't do it manually anymore. He'll do it in a more effective way. That's something I want y'all to consider spending the money for. I understand.
On the water, I mean, does he feel like there's any work that we need to do at the tanks, like with the issue we had back from?
Well, I've asked him to locate all the cast iron pipe that give us so much grief during this freeze. I'd like to see that replaced with high quality PVC pipe and get rid of this breaking every few days. And when the weather gets cold, the ground shifts, it snaps that just like a stick, and it gaps it open completely. It's not a fracture, it's a complete break, and spills a lot of water in a hurry. So I'd like to see that iron pipe come out of the ground and different pipe put back in its place, so we can use some of the money for that. I don't know about sewer yet. We haven't discussed sewer. We've been working on the water side and so forth, but that's the only thing we're gonna be able to use this money for. So let's get all the mileage we can. We don't wanna send none of this money back. We don't have a plan for it. It goes back.
Once we submit the plan, do we have a time frame we have to have the work completed?
We just gotta submit a plan in
Okay.
60 days as to how we're gonna spend it.
Okay.
Then we'll go through the process of spending the money. We have to submit a plan, as I understand it, in the first 60 days after we receive the money, as to how we're gonna use the money. And I can't see any other way that broadband's here. We've got a lot of broadband now. Spectrum's offering it now, and Tom Bigby through Freedom Fiber has done a magnificent job bringing it to Hamilton. So the city may do some token stuff cable somewhere that we need it, but big money, I think's already been spent installing, now it's just a matter of getting hooked on. If any of you want to go to the League of Municipalities, conference, you need to let Angela know, let her help you get registered by, the 15th of April. The price goes up after the 15th of April, and this is, May the 12th through the 15th is the dates for the League of Municipalities, conference, and it's in Huntsville this time. So if you'd like to go, let us know. It's $375 is the fee, and the city will pay if you wanna go. $375
What
per
was the
each.
dates? What was the dates again?
12th through the 15th of May. And, you can still register after that, but it's $100 extra if you register after the 15th of April. So let us know. I do intend to go. If any of you can go, I hope you would see fit to get registered. There was something else I wanted to mention. We got another new business coming to Hamilton. It's the Creamery and Marketplace, and that'll be opening in June. And it's gonna be a real neat shop downtown. The Take Pride in Hamilton update, y'all are having an organizational meeting Thursday night, is that correct, Scott? Tell us a little more about that.
We're gonna have our first meeting Thursday night and just kind of get our ducks in a row and try to lay out, maybe get some ideas of what we wanna do, when we maybe wanna try to plan some cleanup days and, just really just like you said, just an organizational meeting, just to get ready to start, trying to put a plan together to help with this litter issue. And like I said, this committee can't do it by itself. As council, we can't do it by ourselves either. It's gonna take the whole community, so we're gonna be asking for a lot of community support to hopefully make a difference in what people are seeing.
When y'all think about our visit today from these folks, I want each one of you to call me individually. I don't want us to join it if we're not united in this. I want 100% of us for it, or I'm not gonna be for joining. But I think it's so important that we have a unified group on this matter. If any one of you vote no, I'm voting no. If all of you vote yes, I'm voting yes. That's how, it's just gotta be a unified effort as far as I'm concerned, and I'm just one. I'm speaking from the heart today about this matter. When I saw I didn't have a single vote stay in the last administration, I didn't push it. I felt I felt in some areas during this 4 years that we were out, and we're still out here in the 5th year, I felt a little bit of, I don't know exactly what the word is, but a little emptiness where, well, I think there's a feeling that if you're not gonna give us your money and support us, forget any support from us. And we have lots of opportunities to show this, our part down here, and nothing ever happened, even though the county was still a member of the C3. And the county has got 2 commissioner districts that split Hamilton wide open, so we should have had some representation. We had a good park down here. We have Tom Bigby in it, and the rest of it's in fields. And as far as not having a big workforce available, that doesn't bother me in the least. if we get these jobs, you'll see the people run to them. They'll drive from 50, 100 miles to get a good job. We might not have them in 10 miles of the work area, but draw a ring 50-mile radius, see how many workers would come do a good job.
People from
They'll
Hamilton
be
drive
here.
50 miles every day somewhere, to work,
They'll-
then come back home.
Not having,
They're already driving somewhere, they would drive here, I believe.
there's, we need some high-tech industry. And I'm not knocking anything we got, I'm proud of every industry that's here. But how do you take a four-year college person and maybe went to the fifth and sixth year and got a doctorate and expect them to go down here at NTN and hire in the labor force? And they want something better than that once they get their full education. And, I mean, it's just, we've got to find a way to get some of these jobs to move here, come here. And this morning on 95.5 in the talk radio, there was a politician talking to the folks in the studio, and he said there's literally hundreds of support industry to NASA, hundreds of support industry. And we hadn't heard about any one of them, have we? No. So, I mean, NASA's the biggest thing in Alabama. I mean, there's nothing that tops it. It's a worldwide thing. It's big, it's huge, and it's only gonna get bigger. We just moved a big portion of the FBI headquarters, 4,000 jobs with the FBI right here in Huntsville, Alabama. And they're not an industry, but they create a lot of movement of personnel, people that touches a lot of lives. And for goodness sakes, we got 4,000 jobs coming to Athens. There's gonna be support plants galore that are gonna help in that car industry. We don't have any of that, so I don't know, I'm empty as far as bringing stuff to Hamilton. I don't know how to do it exactly, so I guess we're gonna have to have an expert like Tom or somebody. I thought I would be better at it, but I haven't been very successful. And it's like Wade says, everybody's wanting these businesses, and the more talent you've got recruiting, I guess, the better, more successful you'll be. Angela pointed out this morning, this debris removal program, if we're gonna join it, we gotta get in it by May 1st. And it says for us to contact our municipal attorney before we join. And Scott had to leave for another meeting, so I'll try to get with him and let him read over this and see if this program fits us. And if it does, we're gonna join. This is like for storm removal, tornado removal. If you have a tornado that tears your town apart, you can go to this pot of money and get cleanup money out of it. It's a first come, first served basis. There's just only so much money allocated to this pot. And I believe Angela says the cities along the coast like Mobile and Baldwin counties, they're in a certain tier and we're in a different tier because they're more likely to be destroyed by hurricanes and stuff like that. So they get more dibs on this money than we do. But I'm gonna let Scott look at this and see if it fits us, and if it does, we'll join it. I'm trying to make something happen in this town, guys, and I'm just discouraged. Today I just feel empty because I don't have, there ain't no business said I'm coming. I've had some prospects, but I just can't get a commitment. I need a commitment, bad.
It'll happen, we need it, I mean, it's just,
We got as good a community
We
as
do.
there is.
It's
And
very
we're not
frustrating.
second rate as a community, and we just gotta get some things happening.
everybody said when I was on council years ago, when this first building I-22. You wait till this thing opens up, you're gonna explode. That's what I've heard every time. Well, when I was first elected, when it hadn't even been completed yet. And when they first opened up I-22, and it first got completed, I thought, man, we're fixing to see, it's gonna happen. But it still's not happening, it's just so slow, but it's not from a lack of trying. I've tried, every administration I've been on has tried, every mayor I've worked with has tried and tried and tried. But it will happen, I mean, it will happen. There's been seeds planted on every exit, water and sewer, and, you know, it's gonna happen. It's just being patient is not what any of us are, like Scott said, we all want it now. I want it now. But Mayor, I believe it's gonna, I really do. I'm not just trying to shoot a line of bull, I think it's gonna happen. But I keep going with what I hear. And it's not from a lack of trying. You're trying hard. You know, I know you are. And we are too. Anything we can do to put a plug in, if you know somebody we need to call, we'll be have to call on behalf of the council. not
It's
just
a
the state.
shame that we have to fight litter problems instead of work on getting industry here, you know.
Your day-to-day activities takes a lot of time.
But this
Just
litter
doing
problem
stuff
is
like
a
that.
big problem, and we can't turn a
big
deaf ear and a blind eye to it anymore. It's just, it's gotta be cleaned up, and I admire the
It's a juggling act.
group.
It's juggling. I mean,
Yeah, it's a constant
You
juggling.
can't spend every
It's
day.
been that way
recruiting because
forever.
you're Trying to put out so many fires.
We got so many things that need to be fixed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like the mayor was telling them, I mean, our list is almost endless, the stuff that we just gotta chip away at that list and, but still at the same time, be looking for industry and retail business
It'll still be a list into this term,
and I feel like.
but you gotta keep
There'll be a
trying.
list 50 years from now.
Yeah,
I mean,
just
you know,
gotta
you
keep
just have to
trying. It'll happen.
one foot in front of the other.
And I think the development of the interstate.
I've had people
come
tell
with
me to
the
quit
laws.
looking for industry. It ain't gonna happen, to start looking at tourism and different kinds of, retail as being your industry, that you ain't gonna get no new industry. But I just don't wanna give up.
Let me ask you, 20 years ago, would you think there would have been a Love's gas station here in Hamilton?
No,
I wouldn't have,
no,
but it's here.
yeah.
So I mean, it's coming. It's just slow. We've never been an explosion, but it's coming.
It's gonna be a hard problem for me to see it from my grave. I wanna see it while I'm alive.
I may not see it.
I mean,
Ross may not see it, but it'll be here.
Well, Mayor, on that thought, I've had a couple people, and Scott, this might be something y'all are talking about Thursday, and I don't know, but those bins out in front of the Shoppers Value, I don't know if we have any control. It's just an eyesore, because you know that's an intersection.
people are dumping couches.
Yeah.
They
So I don't
don't
know.
want,
I don't
it's
know
their
if we need
trash.
There's a refrigerator down at
Yeah.
that one beside Hardee's.
Yeah,
Somebody
so
put
I
in the
don't know
refrigerator.
if that's something that we need to talk to, because those companies, I know they do good things. I think one of them's Veteran Affairs, and you know, so I'm not dishing the company at all, but there has been a growing concern, especially with this one right here, because you got 43 and 17, so three directions right there. The
We already
one-
had to clean it up one time, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and the one going east of town, you know, it don't get seen as much, but it's all like y'all say, you know, it's all that. So I don't know if that's something that, you know, the new committee can reach out, or is that something that the city can work with those companies and help keep it clean?
It's becoming a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lady call me the other day, and she said, somebody's disrespecting our veterans. Did you see what they dumped out there for the veterans to get to use?
And it's not like, I mean,
Their
that was,
trash, they put their trash out there where they pick up the veterans' gifts. And she was dismayed about it, and so was I. And we sent the, grapple truck up there and picked the mess up and moved it. It was awful. It's something that should have never been put out there.
I didn't know if, you know, we could work with them, or maybe in that
Good
committee,
question.
just
I wish I knew that.
readdressing, you know.
Offhand,
those-
I don't know.
I think Jeff Scott
We
wants to
allow
say there.
people to
Yeah.
put those,
what we can do.
things out there for collection area, but when people set off stuff they just don't, that they're through with, when it should go down there in our dumpster at the city, shop, I mean, it's kind of an awful thing. but, we'll talk more. But, I think we got a meeting Monday night, is that, yeah, that's correct, we'll have our next. Do you know what we've got on the agenda so far?
I know, of course, the minutes, we'll have the issue of changing the, zoning for Mr. Carter's property that's right up
Yeah.
here.
That's
didn't know
this
if-
commercial lot up here by the old Sonic, not the Sonic, but the Hamilton Drive-In.
Credit card.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know if
Before
y'all
you turn
wanted
to
to
go to the
vote
rec
on
center.
C3 or not.
One lot's commercial, one lot's residential, and he wants it all commercial. That's what we'll be
What
voting
about the
on.
wood tap here?
Red lights. Red light sensors.
All right, yeah. Mike's gonna meet with us at the next workshop,
Okay.
and we're gonna get a full decision, and then we'll vote on it at the first meeting of May.
He had, somebody looking at the lights downtown too. about
We're gonna
possibly
try to
changing
get
the
those
fixtures,
things synchronized
changing the
better
fixtures
than
out, Scott,
they
get a
are.
brighter light.
Yes.
I don't know if he's got a proposal, but somebody was in town yesterday, the day before.
I think
Yesterday.
cameras is gonna be the answer instead of sensors in the ground.
Yes.
Yeah.
Since we don't have curb and gutter, our asphalt breaks on the side and tears those, things in the ground, those loops right up. And
Yeah, we gotta go.
Then they don't
sensors.
work properly.
Don't mess with loops.
I believe the cameras are gonna be the answers. That'll talk to our computer box on the side.
I think we need to reiterate, these aren't literal cameras. I know that
Yes.
A couple
Right.
people have already asked.
They
me
are
about it.
sensors.
It's just sensors.
They don't
We're
read
not
the tag.
taking pictures.
I've already
or
had two
reading
people say,
tags.
you're gonna be looking at us at the red light? I said, no,
Yeah.
it's just,
So maybe whenever we vote, we can, reiterate that, because I mean, you know,
Get your
we're
tag
not
number.
taking pictures or nothing.
I've been thinking.
hey, I've had some phone calls, I'll tell you.
I've had a
I have
couple.
too. Yeah, they think you're gonna read your tag number if they run a red light or something.
Thank y'all for coming today.
Absolutely.
We'll have a lot of fun if we go to that municipal convention. You'll meet a lot of people that you'll make friends with, and you'll learn a lot.
They're really,
So-
I probably won't be able to go, if you get a chance to go, I've been to multiple, and they're very, very good, like the mayor said, you'll sit in classes, they'll break it up in groups that are
Round
about
tables.
your size of your town, and you'll have a group session, and different topics, and you just sit around, and you'll be surprised that every town that you talk to has just about the same problems. Water, garbage, dogs, you name it, we're all in the same unity. But you'll learn a lot, you have good speakers, and you'll gain a lot of things that help you be a better council member.
Some towns
Yeah, you get to go.
are big on their downtown area, and some people are about their parks. They really work on their parks a lot. Others about bigger cities about transportation, and all kinds of stuff comes up. But you'll hear a little of all of it. And some of the folks that make the presentations at the league meetings actually have a speech. They don't sit there and read it off to you. They actually have a speech to make, and some of them are good,
They're very good. Plus, they have a lot of vendors
informative
that
too.
have different things that might be interesting that might can help your town, hundreds of vendors, park, vehicles, all kinds of stuff.
So Mayor, you're planning on going the whole time it's up there, is that your plans?
Yeah,
Okay. Maybe we can split it up amongst us, just so that we can all try to,
there's
I don't know. if
a
it'll work.
schedule, like if you only want Thursday only, it's $275. If you want Friday only, it's $275. If you want Saturday only, it's $175. If you want Wednesday only, it's $175. So the meat of the conference is gonna be, you can tell Thursday and Friday is gonna be your big days when it says the governor has been invited. It doesn't say that she'll be there, but she's invited to be the keynote speaker to open the convention. there's a lot of awards given out at this thing that people recognize for length of service and stuff like that. You'll see some of these folks that's worked in city government for 40 years come up and get their plaque. Most of them about ready to quit at that point. 40 is about a record, I think. Thank y'all.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/49 County News TV.